Functionally fabulous day, grade 8 students. Before we begin, let's take a moment to reflect and pray. Amazing grace, my chains are gone. Amen. Class Secretary, how is our today's attendance? I'm glad to hear that everyone is present today and I look forward to a productive session with all of you. Let's make the most of our time together with a positive note on mind. Remember to respect each other, participate actively, and follow our classroom rules. Now class, are you ready to divide and conquer today's mathematical duel? Alright, let's begin with a quick knowledge refresh. Yesterday we discussed about linear function. Who can remind me of its general formula? Articulate, we have y is equal to mx plus b, where m is the slope and b is the y-intercept. At this point, using your whiteboard, kindly jot down the slope and the y-intercept of the following linear functions. You may exchange whiteboard with your seatmates right after. Finish class? Let's check your answers. What is your answer for the first linear function? Correct. We have m is equal to 2 and b is equal to 4. What about for the second linear function? Awesome. We have m is equal to negative 5 and b is equal to negative 6. And what about for the last linear function? Excellent. We have a slope of 7 and a y-intercept of negative 12. You're really sharp with linear function, class. Now, let's see if you're just as sharp when it comes to your favorite movie habit. Who among you here love binge watching movies? Oh, I see. Are you familiar with Netflix? Cool. So, do you prefer watching alone or with your friends? Alright, now let's get into a scenario. Imagine you're onto a Netflix and you and your barkada love binge watching movies. Two streaming platforms are offering different payment schemes. You must choose one plan, which is more solid. For plan A, which is stream on, there will be no monthly fee, but you have to pay 40 pesos per movie. And the function to represent that is y is equal to 40x. And for plan B, which is binge box, there will be a flat 400 pesos monthly fee. But you can watch as many movies as you can. And the number or the function to represent that is y is equal to 400. We have here the table that visualizes the difference between plan A and plan B. And for column A, we have x, which represents the number of movies. For instance, if you did not watch any single movie, for plan A, of course, you don't have to pay any amount. Unlike for plan B, even if you did not watch any single movie in a month, still you have to pay the fixed monthly fee, which is 400 pesos. Meanwhile, if you watch a total of 7 movies, for plan A, you have to multiply 40 by 7, so you have to pay 280 pesos. But for plan B, no matter how more or how less the number of movies you are going to watch, still you have to pay an amount of 400 pesos. Given those information, let's try to answer the following questions. At what point do both plans cost the same? Correct, we have x is equal to 10, or when the total number of movies watched is equal to 10. What about which plan is cheaper if you only watch 5 movies, and what about when you watch 12 movies? Brilliant observations. When watching 5 movies, plan A is cheaper, and when watching 12 movies, plan B is cheaper. And with the last question, which do you think is more suited to a bill? As you notice, when watching 10 movies, both plans have to pay the same amount, which is 400. So what is now your conclusion? Correct, it depends, because when watching less than 10 movies, you have observed that plan A is better to a bill. But when watching more than 10 movies, plan B is more suited. So it's up to you. You guys decide if you think you can watch more than 10 movies in a month, then you must choose plan B. But if you think you can only watch less than 10 movies in a month, then better to a bill plan A. Today, class, we're going to explore how we can use linear functions in making decisions, empowering you to make practical and informed choices in life. But before we dive in, let's take a look at our learning objectives. Class, kindly read. So these are the learning targets that are expected for you to achieve at the end of our discussion. To begin, let's identify what each variable in the linear function represents in real life, beginning with b, which in real life is the initial or fixed value. In our example while back, we have b is equal to 400 because it is the fixed monthly fee. Next, we have m and x, wherein m is the rate of change and x is the input. In worded problem, they usually go together and are represented by m per unit, wherein m is the rate of change and the unit used is the x. For instance, we have 40 pesos per movie. Your m here is 40 and x here is the unit, or the movie is the unit here. So whatever is number is that will be your input for x. X can be any value. And lastly, we have y, which is the output. In real life, it is usually the total cost or earnings. You usually obtain y after plugging in values for your m, for your x, and for your b. Class, do you need further elaboration on this part? If none, then let's try to translate real-world problem to linear function. So this is the first problem. Miss Anna is a part-time tutor. She charges a base fee of 150 pesos for materials and 200 pesos per hour of tutoring. Write a function for the total cost. Bear in mind that when translating real-world problem to linear function, you only have to identify two key values, the value for your m and the value for your b. Now, what do you think is the value of our m here? Correct, we have m is equal to 200. Take note, we have 200 pesos per hour as indicated by the word per. And our here will be the x. Now, what do you think is our value for b, or the initial value? Articulate, we have 150. And now, since we already have the value for m and for b, we can just plug in them in our original linear function. So we now have y is equal to 200x plus 150. Does it make sense, class? I'm glad to hear that. Since we already have the linear function that represents our worded problem, let's try to answer this question. How much will 3 hours of tutoring cost? So for our first step here is to write our linear function, and that is y is equal to 200x plus 150. Now, ask yourselves, what does 3 hours here represent? So what do you think is the variable in the linear function that can be best represented by 3 hours or hours itself? Great thinking! R is the unit, so we therefore plug in x is equal to 3 because x is the variable that best represent here the 3 hours. So we have to let x is equal to 3. Now, our third step is to plug in 3 in terms of x. So we now have y is equal to 200 times the quantity 3 plus 150. Proceeding now to our step-by-step computation, the first one that we're going to do is to multiply 200 and 3. What is 200 times 3? Correct, we have 600. And lastly, we're going to add 600 plus 150, so we will get 750. So our value for y is 750. And to answer that one, for every 3 hours of tutoring, you have to pay a total amount of 750 pesos. Are you following along, class? Alright. Now, we have here another problem. Anyone who wants to read it? Alright. So, what do you think is the value of our m here? Brilliant. We have m is equal to 10. And what about for b? Yes, we have b is equal to 50. And how are we going to write it as linear function? Absolutely, we have y is equal to 10x plus 50. Now class, let's try to answer this question. How much will it cost for 5 kilometers? What again is our first step here? Very good, we have to write our linear function, and that is y is equal to 10x plus 50. What is our next step? Okay, so we are going to let x is equal to 5 because the 5 kilometers, there is the x value or our unit. And then, okay, we have to plug in 5 in terms of x. Now, what is our next step? Very good, we have to multiply 10 times 5. And what is 10 times 5? Alright, that is 50. And what is our final value for y? We have y is equal to 100. What is your conclusion here then, class? Great thinking. So, for every 5 kilometers covered, you will be charged 100 pesos. Do you have any questions here, class? Alright, very good. Now, let's try to see how important is identifying the linear functions in making our decisions. So, let's go back to our example earlier. So, you can see we have here the table of our streaming plan showdown in our very first example earlier. And we also have here the plan A and the plan B. But before we go on to that one, I have here a question for you. What do you think is that x is equal to 10 represents there? Okay, so x is equal to 10 here is what we call the break-even point. If we say break-even point, it is the value of x wherein two linear functions can have the same y values. But we can use linear function to find for the break-even point. How? To do that, let's set the two equations equal to each other. So we have the two equations, y is equal to 40x and y is equal to 400. Setting them equal to each other, we now have 40x is equal to 400. To find for the break-even point or the x, we're just going to divide both sides to 40. Whatever number or numerical coefficient is beside x, and that is 40. So we have to divide both sides of the equations to 40. 40 divided by 40, we have x. And 400 divided by 40, we have 10. So we have x is equal to 10. Our break-even point here is x is equal to 10. We can now use the break-even point in order for us to decide. But how? Our first step here is to choose values lesser than 10 and values greater than 10. We can only choose or pick up one. So who can give me, let's start first with value lesser than 10. Who can give me a value? Okay, let's try x is equal to 5. So, we're just go for stream on and binge box. Let's try to plug in the value of x for each. So, for stream on, that will be 40x. So, we are going to plug in 5 in terms of x. So, we have 40 times 5, that is 200. But for binge box, you don't have x there. So, automatically, it will just be 400. Now, if you notice, when x is lesser than 10, stream on is cheaper because you only have to pay 200 pesos for every 5 movies watched. Unlike for binge box, it is more expensive. 400 pesos. You have to pay 400 pesos. So your decision here is when watching less than 10 movies, stream on is more affordable. Now let's see when x is greater than 10. Who can give me a value greater than 10? Okay, let's try 12. So again, let's go over to our plan A and plan B. So for plan A or stream on, we're going to plug in 12 in terms of x. So 40 times 12, we have 480. But for binge box, it's a fixed amount, so 400. Now, as you notice, stream on is more expensive when x is greater than 10. And so your decision here is when watching more than 10 movies, binge box is more solid. So that's the importance of solving for linear function or using linear function in making decisions. So your first step again, remember, you have to find for break-even point or the value for x, wherein you have to equate the two equations equal to each other. And then, after finding x or your break-even point, you just have to plug in, you just have to go over your two functions and plug in a lesser than your break-even point number and a value greater than your break-even point, and that's the time that you can now decide. Do you understand our class discussion? I'm glad to hear that.